Hello everyone, this is Ranjani, and no, we are not reviewing the book today. Instead, we're going to do something different. So I'm going to meet a leader I really admire and do a leader talk today. My life precept has always been that life is too short to make all the mistakes yourself, and sometimes you must learn from others. And if you haven't realized, I love talking and I love learning. So I can't think of a better person to start the leader talks than Pankaj Rai. He is a celebrity who honestly needs no introduction. I think I'm at any point in time I'm just 1 degree away from any leader in the industry or anyone for that matter in analytics, because everyone knows Pankaj. So let me just tell a bit about Pankaj before we get started. Only recently, I think you spoke strategy and consulting with Kapil Dev at some conference, right? And he is currently the Senior Vice President Strategy at Wells Fargo, and he has 25 years of diverse experience starting in financial services industry and moving on in offshoring space. He's done stellar roles across ICICI, GE Capital, Standard Chartered, and Dell. And I really like this culture of 3 E's that you talk about around effectiveness, efficiency, and experience. Apart from that, he's been this regular speaker at conferences like Cypher, Analytics India Magazine, Rising for Women, etc. And most importantly, I think he always has this pocket full of stories which he wants to share with everyone, and everyone can learn a thing or two from. So that's a fascinating introduction. So let's start with that, right? I was listening to your TED talk about how you started off in the small town and have pretty much made it across the globe. So what do you think are the decisions that you've made that has resulted in this career trajectory and where you are today?
Thanks, Ranjani. It's a privilege to be on the show. I like the introduction where you said you want to learn from other people's mistakes, and you probably sorted all the people that you know, and the one who had made most of the mistakes come first. So good to be here.
Sense of humor as well, absolutely. Okay.
So on that topic, I think I keep talking about all these decisions that we all make, and at least in my own opinion, many of the decisions that I have made or many people in my generation have made were more of what we knew will not work, and then the other option got chosen, and not necessarily because we wanted something. It was more moving away from something that was not right for me. So very early on, in school, all of us are asked to take a subject, whether it is engineering or medicine. And since I didn't like dissecting a frog, I thought the other option available was engineering. So I took science, not as if I really enjoyed any of those things.
Right.
And that stayed on. I would say that when I was in my engineering class, I don't necessarily think I fell in love with electrical engineering. And the moment I started applying abroad, which is what most people at that point in time were doing to do masters, and the great thing that US universities do is to actually ask you, why are you doing this? Because before that, no one ever asked me. My dad told me that you have to be an engineer. I didn't know any better and said, okay, if you say so. So the moment you start writing your statement of purpose, and you start thinking, and I think that's probably the first time you think, you realize that it wasn't as if it is the best thing to do. And the MBA came to the rescue. So I was quite sure that engineering wasn't what I wanted to do.
Okay.
It wasn't as if I wanted to do an MBA, but that was the other option which presented itself at that point in time.
Right.
So I would say that most of the decisions were, at one point in time thinking about something is not working for me, and the next option appeared to be an opportunity which might open up new doors.
Right.
And I would say that in general that seems to have worked for me. I've had no regrets. I'm proud to be an engineer for the while that I was.
Right.
I'm proud to do my MBA for as long as I did. And all the other decisions also were in a similar vein. If I look at my job changes, at some stage in that job, I was thinking that maybe, what to do next. And someone in the target company who knew me told me that, there's a nice opportunity for me to go over there.
Right.
So those decisions are also that, looks like there's a new window. Not necessarily that I was passionate about that window. It appeared to be something new which someone over there felt I could do, and things happened. I mean, it was even inside companies. When I was in Dell, I was doing a certain role. One of my seniors, Jay Srinivasan, I still remember, asked me that why don't you do analytics, and it wasn't as if I was passionate about analytics, but it seemed like a new idea which I could pursue.
Okay.
So I would say most of my decisions have been pursuing something new at the point in time when I was probably getting bored with whatever I was doing, and there was someone who was telling me this is good for you, and I went with that advice.
Right.
And then other things happened, some through luck, some through my own inputs, and things seem to have all worked out.
Got it. No, but there's an interesting point you made earlier on, like while you're taking decisions, by staying away from what you don't like, you actively chose what you ended up with, right? Maybe that is the reason why.
I would say that there weren't too many other options available at that point in time.
Okay.
So today I would say that my daughter or many people in this generation face too many choices, which actually is very confusing. And I would look back and say, I actually just had that other choice. In fact, I have gone on to say that in our growing up years, there were fewer choices, so we had mostly binary choices.
Do you think it was better that way, given the multitude of choices we have now?
I wouldn't say so. I think we just grew up in an era where we were trained to take binary choices, and it was easy.
Engineer or doctor.
Yeah, or Colgate or Four Hands, Fiat or Ambassador.
Right.
Things like that. So there were enough number of things which you could say that there were two options, even probably TV channels. There was a private channel and there was a public channel and so on. And you didn't like one and you went on to the other one. So I would think that was the era. This is a new era. I wouldn't say that any era is better than the other one. We need to adjust and adapt to that new era and figure out how you want to thrive in that new era versus keep sticking on to an old era which had changed, made your mental models. Which is the reason I sometimes think that many of the things that we talk about, AI and machine learning and trying to predict the future using past data, I sometimes think that most of the past data is not necessarily relevant to predict the future. In fact, my personal view is that all of us should be trying to create a future that we want versus predict a future which is just based on historical data.
Right, creating the future that you want. No, that sounds very commonsensical, but it's surprising how many people don't follow that as much, right? Brings me to the second question I had related to what you just spoke about, right? What do you think is the formula for more output and less overwhelm in this era of choices, abundant choices?
So I don't know whether, I think in the terms of, productivity or more output or any of those things, because in the search for more, sometimes we forget the need for quality, the need for present, and so on. So in my own personal life, I have looked at some patterns, and not that I have devised my life in that way. I realized that I didn't necessarily have a very strong view of a future, nor did I have a very strong remembrance of the past. So since I didn't have both of them, I tended to have stayed in the present, which nowadays when I tell people this is, oh, that's great, being in the moment is the best thing you can do. So probably that's the reason I am unable to think about things in terms of more and better and successful. All of those things I think are defined by yourself, and if you believe that you are doing the best you can, I don't think anyone else can tell us that we aren't doing enough or we aren't doing more or we aren't successful. So I would certainly believe that the validation that we seek sometimes goes to the other extreme, and in that validation we forget that what we stand for. So I do think that validation is relevant and important, because you don't want to be doing things which no one cares for, doesn't impact anyone. At the same time, too much of focus on what others want or want from you could drive you in the direction that you are not necessarily good at. Let's say, for example, if my dad had for whatever reason wanted that he wants his son to be a doctor, and if I had heeded to that advice, I don't know whether that would have been the right choice, and he may not have also felt that way. So I think many a time people expect certain things from us, not because they don't understand us or they don't like us. They have a need to do that, but we are the best judge of those choices. And sometimes it's hard, because when your near and dear ones believe something you can do, and sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't. So that's a very, very hard choice, because if my dad had not pushed me into studying for sciences and engineering, I wouldn't have gotten the degree that I got.
Right.
So these days that is a hard choice that some of us as parents have, and I don't know know the answer. Should I be pushing my children in a certain direction? How much should be pushing? Plus there are so many directions that which direction to push on. So I have frankly not pushed anything, but there are many friends of mine who do have those beliefs, and it's very hard to say what is right or wrong. Many a time the end tends to justify the means. So if things seem to be working in your way, then you tend to look at the past data and say whatever you did was right. And if it doesn't, you don't. So there is a bias in the way we look at success and what we did and so on and so forth. I do think that there's a lot of luck and a lot of chance that plays a role than we assign.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's also this period after which you cannot blame your parents for the choices you made as well, right? So you have to be responsible. It reminds me of this phrase I tend to associate with you, joy of missing out. That's something you seem to use often and maybe also practice, right? Does that help cut down on the overwhelm?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of noise out there, and the noise has increased because of social media, connectivity, and all of that. So I have over time realized that when as a society or as individuals, we have grown up in scarcity when things were scarce. So we are designed to consume things when they become available, because we don't know when they will become available next. And I look at two things. One is our body, which requires food, and our mind, which requires information. So I think in both those areas, we tend to not know how to deal with abundance, because we were, came in the era of scarcity when there was one TV channel, food was scarce, people had famines. So I am trying to look at how do I choose to eat when I have to, choose to consume information when I need to, and that's what I talk to my friends in a lighter vein to say, while a lot of people are in that FOMO mode, I'm in that JOMO mode, that the food will walk up to me when I'm hungry, and the information will come to me through a friend of mine when it is needed. Now it's a bit of a exaggeration and simplification, but I do believe that we need less of both, and making the right choice in when and how is always a tough one, and everyone has to figure out how often and what they need to consume.
No, I'm gonna keep that as a lesson for life. Joy of missing out. All right. So, okay, this is something I also personally want to understand from you. You've been in analytics for much longer than when it has started to be considered as cool and the sexiest job by millennials, right? And today we have a lot of youngsters who want to be the data scientists and who want to be building cool models. What would your advice be to someone who is looking at getting into the space and things that they should focus on or anticipate for the future?
So, at different points in time, different fields become exciting. Some of it because there's a demand for them. When I was growing up, engineers were in a lot of demand. So everyone was making their children engineers, and there came a time, in fact computer engineers at that, and there came a time that you found that there were too many engineers and we didn't probably need as many. So I do think that the market will at times favor a certain skill set. There'll be a lot of people trying to pursue that skill set. Now in my time, when there were fewer choices, I think probably it was okay to follow the trend, because that was the only way for you to attain self-sufficiency and things like that. But today there are so many different choices that people have, that I think people can achieve self-sufficiency in a myriad different ways. So they don't necessarily have to follow a trend. And my belief is that actually there is not just one trend. There are several other trends happening. You can be a YouTuber, which is very unconventional. You can be today a cricketer or a sports person, because those fields also are allowing so many different people to show up and do things.
And lucrative as well.
Yeah, and I think there can be many others that you choose to create. Like I said, you should not be a job seeker, you should be a job creator, first for yourself and then maybe for others if you're lucky. So I think we have an opportunity to think differently than the past, and people should take advantage of that. And there are no models available for that because it's new, but then that's the exciting part. Create your own model, choose your own path and things like that. That's what I believe in. Easier said than done, but let's see.
Yeah, no, I really like that. Be a job creator instead of a job seeker, right? And create your own path. Very related to that, and I think you did have a talk in the past around this. Where do you think a future of humanity is headed in the age of AI?
Yeah, I think many people and several other experienced people have said a lot of things about this topic. I am right now unable to relate to AI becoming that evil force which will lead to super intelligence and it will take over humanity and we'll become subservient to that. Somewhere I think that notion is exaggerated, and the reason I say that is, end of the day, we are trying to become better than humans. Now, if I look at the human beings, there are two parts to us. One is our physical body, and then there is this mental body.
Right.
I don't think anyone has still figured out our body. We still have new diseases, new viruses, new things, and we have no clue where they come from, where they go, and how to fight them. The mental body is even more complex. We still don't understand, and I'm told that we are using 1 or 3% of our brain. The rest of it is a mystery. So I just think that I don't think we have comprehended this body and mind very well. And we are so much far away from that I'm unable to relate to this notion when someone says that they'll be able to create a machine which will become better than human. And therefore, I think it is for us to utilize these new intelligent machines in the best possible way, as we have done in the past. I do think that the challenge today is that the rate of change is very high.
Right.
So in the past we were able to get used to these new technologies and get used to using it and so on. Today at least my generation is unable to adapt. But then I also see that the younger generation is very quick to adapt these things. You give a 2-year-old a cell phone and they are able to figure out even if they haven't had any education.
Right.
So I also believe that the humanity will tend to adapt. It will take a while. Some of us will have not been trained to adapt, but maybe the new ones will adapt more quickly. And there will come a time when some of us, when we look at people's job profile and say, oh, you've been changing jobs every 2 years, and look at it with disdain. Maybe there will come a time when we'll say that if you haven't changed your job every year, you are probably no good.
Yeah, times change. No, absolutely.
And the reason I say that because you can make an impact faster. I think the reason for that 2 year was that the life was slow. You had to stay 2 years in a job to make an impact. But let's say life is faster, and if you can make a lot of impact in 1 year, why does time matter?
Yeah, no, that's like a couple of things which really stood out in your answer, that making an impact right now, unlike in my parents' generation, doesn't have to take decades. It can be done immediately. And you also spoke about this exponential growth of how quickly things have changed, both of which are very relevant, and we tend to still think about how life was a couple of decades ago, but it is different right now. So that's true. So I'm gonna probably take a step out of AI and ML and talk about other things. So you've taken a lot of decisions across your life. What has been the toughest decision that you've made so far, and would you change it if you had to go back?
So in my way of thinking, there are no regrets. There's only lessons. So there's nothing that I would ever change. In fact, some people say that if you were to be born again, what would you do differently? And I'll say, I'll definitely want it to be a mystery, as this life was. I don't want a predictable life. What's the fun of this? I don't go to an astrologer and check what I'm going to do. I would rather, create a new life in the way it makes me feel fulfilled versus something, something else. So I don't think there is any decision which I would look back and say whether it was hard or wrong.
At that minute, was it difficult, and now in hindsight it seems that way?
Yeah, as time passes by, something that appeared difficult at that point in time seemed to appear not so difficult.
Right.
So for example, I had lived in Delhi for 25 years. When I took up a job to go to Chennai to work for Scope International, it was a new city, it was a new industry. I was expecting our second daughter. So at that one time it appeared that it was a very difficult decision. Although I have to say, and someone was asking me the other day, I said, but maybe at that point in time we were so driven by our careers that neither me nor my wife ever felt it will be so tough. I think if it was happening in today's age, some of us would have spoken about work-life balance and many other things. I think maybe in that day and age, 16, 17 years ago, it always appeared that that's the best thing you can do, and that's how it is, and you don't ask questions. So I think the decision making also in different contexts is different, and when you take it out of context, it appears different, but it may not be so.
No, that's interesting, right, Pankaj? Because I remember, my parents asked me to do something, I did, because that's how it is, right? Versus how it is now, where my daughter doesn't take things with a sense of resignation. There's always why and what and all of that. So different decisions matter in terms of context. Very valid point.
Right.
So you have 2 lovely daughters, right? And if you have to leave your daughters with just one piece of advice that will hold her in good stead for the rest of her life, which could help her both in designing her career as well as her life, what would that be?
So, there are, several lessons. There's a 3C, 5C framework and
Right.
things like that I've spoken about. But if I were to, in a lighter vein, summarize, is, what the movie dialogue is, "Ja Simran ji le apni zindagi." Which means that, you have to follow your heart, you have to follow your path, and all of us can help you determine that path with providing some experiences that we have, and seek experience from many others, like you are doing right now. But end of the day, you have to do what your heart says or what you truly believe in, and that I think is very, very important, because sometimes in the day of analytics and AI, we think that the decision that we take will just present to themselves to us in a very, very meaningful way, show up as a set of data which tells us what to do. But I think decision making is a lot about gut feel. I still think even today, despite all the data and AI and ML that we might have, the final decision is taken by the human being, adding a sense of gut feel and some other notion which is probably not captured by the data. Although the data has narrowed down your choices, brought you closer to it, but still there's a choice to be made, and that's still some amount of fuzziness involved in that.
And that's that human judgment which is always involved. No, that's true. So go ahead. It's going to be very difficult for me to translate that line, so maybe I'm just going to leave it as it was in Hindi.
Yeah, no, I think the way is to say, follow your heart, follow your path. Yeah.
Okay, so this again is like a personal question. You are like, maybe the word is sorted. You're the most sorted person I know, right? In the sense that you exactly know what to do at any point in time. You seem to be at peace with yourself, which very few people are, to be very honest. So how do you do that? Is that like spirituality, meditation? What keeps you grounded?
Yeah. It's very hard to assign some of those words, and I'm unable to describe some of these things because words don't necessarily do justice to who we are and what we do. And sometimes we also don't know why we are the way we are. Some of the people outside are judging us on who we are. So if you feel I'm sorted, it's your judgment. I haven't gone out to become sorted myself. Yeah. So I would say that what I do is to try to be just true to myself, true to everyone around me. I don't think I can be true to myself if I'm not thinking about the entire ecosystem that I'm part of. So the way I look at my own life, my own decision, my own impact, it has to always be optimizing the ecosystem the way I understand it. So if I was a small child in my own home, I should maximize my home's total happiness, if you may. And if right now I'm aware of the environment, I'm aware of other people, I'm aware of, so whatever I'm aware of, that should be factored in when I'm taking a decision. It can't be about myself, it has to be about the ecosystem. Like I said, our view of the ecosystem keeps evolving, and I choose to keep evolving so that I have a better and a broader view, so that I'm unnecessarily not harming any part of the ecosystem inadvertently because I didn't know about it, which we have done in the past. We have harmed the environment as children, we have thrown garbage, we have done many things, but we didn't know any better. Now we don't do this, but we are probably doing something else. So I don't know what we don't know. So the idea is to continue questioning yourself to make sure that you comprehend the universe in a better way, so that your choices and your decisions are made in a sense that it optimizes everyone.
So is that a conscious thing which you do, Pankaj? Because most of the time we think that we should be doing this, and then but in the heat of the moment we don't. So do you consciously think about it? Like, am I optimizing my environment?
Hard to say, but I would think that is true, because I keep talking about it also to remind myself that I should do that. And some of these things I think are also inherent as us. I think probably I might have taken some of those qualities from my mother.
Parents, no, that is very well ingrained, right? What you grew up with, So you feel that way, that from your parents?
I think we don't realize there's so much that we take from our parents that only when you look back, then you realize. So when you are young, you always think that they don't know anything, and you have to rebel, and you are different, and you don't have to follow the path. But we learn a lot of things. In fact, we also learn things which we probably should not do, because many a time maybe our parents have made some mistakes, and we can learn from them as well and try to not make those mistakes. So I think there's a bunch of things, but there's a huge influence I would think that most people have from their parents, whether they realize it or not.
No, that is so true. I think I appreciate my parents now after I've become a mom than I ever did before this, right? So yeah, totally. Okay, this I absolutely have to ask you. You're so massively well connected, like I started off, right? You are like this mini celebrity. So how do you approach networking? Are you a giver? Are you a taker? Or how do you do that?
Yeah. I think, like I spoke to you about that, my idea is to continue enhancing my view of the world. So that curiosity drives me to talk to someone who's sitting next to me in an aeroplane, someone who's on the airport next to me, in the elevator, wherever. So whoever I find, and someone who's open to talking. And nowadays, as I have grown older with grey hair, people seem to be far more open to talking now than they might have been before. So I get away with talking to almost anyone and trying to learn from them. And I don't think you can be, either a giver or a taker in the long run. You will have to be both. Because unless the relationships are symbiotic, they don't, go on for too long.
Totally. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway, because most of the time people approach networking like, what's in it for me? But this point you mentioned around being curious, just being curious and talking to people, even when you don't have to network, I think that's what differentiates you from others.
And in that process, always thinking of, how can I also help them? Because while in my curiosity I am seeking some knowledge, but in that process I should also be able to provide them some ideas which they should feel worthy of. So that's the idea which continues, and that's the reason if I were to talk to someone again, they might want to talk again, because they felt there was a reciprocity.
Totally. And that's something I can totally vouch for, and I think every conversation I've left after speaking to Pankaj, I've been better off than I was earlier, so totally vouch for that. I have a couple of last questions related again to very relevant to me as well. So you've been a leader for decades now, and this question is probably very relevant to people who are aspiring to be leaders. And I think being a manager versus being a leader are two different things, right? So what do you think makes an effective leader who is trusted by a team?
I have never been able to relate to my identity as a leader, because somewhere the connotation is that you are this all-knowing person who's leading a bunch of people towards a certain goal. I've always felt that I'm just trying to lead myself and barely making it. So and which is the reason it continues to fuel my curiosity to continue to learn more and do more. So I think I've never looked at myself from that moniker, but I do think that whatever I have done, I have found a lot of other people who have felt similarly and who come along, and there must have been several other people who did not relate to whatever I was doing, and they self-selected themselves out of it.
Right.
So I always say that if you are doing something, make it known, make it visible, make it available publicly, which is what I do by talking and things like that, so that natural selection happens, and people who can relate to my ideas come along, and those that don't necessarily need to waste their time, and they can do something else.
Well, actually, I've never thought of it that way, Pankaj, because you're always like trying to bring everyone along, but what you're saying makes sense, right? You kind of put yourself out there and see who wants to follow you, and who doesn't, maybe don't.
Yeah, and I would say associate with me. Like I said, followership appears to be a one-sided relationship. To me, it's all about a ecosystem, and no one is more equal than the other in my mind. Everyone is contributing, and I just think that I believe in a very flat, non-hierarchical world, and as long as everyone thinks of themselves as an equal participant and an equal owner, is when we'll have a far more fulfilling life in society.
No, I think it served you well, that precept. Related thing, so what are the things or what are the areas you look at when you identify good leaders?
I would think that we all look for people who are similar to us, and the similarity to me is being authentic, having a cause and a purpose, and just being true to that. And it could be anything, and some of those causes and purposes I may not relate to, but that's fine as well. So I do think that as long as everyone is transparent, following a certain cause, everyone is aware of it, I think the world will be a better place. Today we don't know what the purpose of certain individuals are, so you don't know how to trust them, and when there is no trust, how do you create a healthy society, healthy anything?
Yeah, no, I think all of this has been more useful to me. I hope it is for everyone else who's watching as well. So to conclude this, I'm gonna do very quick lightning round. So I'm going to call this less than 10 words. So please don't think too much. Just tell us the first thing that comes at the top of your head, okay? We have 10 questions and here we go. So if you were starting off again today as a teenager, what do you think you would do differently?
I don't know. Like I said, I would just follow whatever choices came my way.
You're not telling us a lot of controversial things, Pankaj.
Yeah.
So Okay, what are the skills that you didn't learn at school which you think has helped you the most right now?
Yeah, I think the soft skills part of it. I think I was too focused on acquiring hard skills.
Yeah.
And later on, I realized that these softer ones, I get attracted to more. I mean, I didn't want to be an Einstein who was just focused on inventing something. I think I'm a more people person, and maybe that is something I could have done more of. But like I said, one can do certain things sequentially as well. So I have no regrets that I didn't do it
that
then,
way, right?
but I was able to do it later, and that's fine.
But most people also do the same thing, right? Focus on the academics as much and not so much on the soft skills. Okay, so when you think of the word successful, who are the first people that come to your mind?
Yeah, I think the most successful people we don't know, because success is defined by people from within, and they can only define their success. And the most successful people don't have a need to reveal themselves. So to me, I don't think we know most successful people, because the measurement mechanism is not in favor of them. They are just happy in themselves. They don't have the need to tell anyone. So I don't think we know the real successful people, because the measurement mechanism doesn't bring them out.
I like how your answers are like totally off left field. I usually, people think of like the most well-known people, right? But what you're saying is a paradigm shift from that.
And you said it, they are the most well-known, not necessarily the most successful.
They're two different things. Yeah, that's a good thing to know. All right, so what do you believe to be true that very few people agree upon?
That's hard. I think, I have, maybe given that I have self-selected my people around me, they tend to broadly agree with my thoughts. I've hardly had a chance of disagreement or the problems or things of that nature. I mean, sometimes people do say that you have to be tough and aggressive and all of that, but over time they also realize that that's not my style. If I did that, I'll not be true to myself.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Do you have any kind of routine that you follow?
Yeah, my entire life is routinized. So on 5 days a week, going to office.
Yeah, I was hoping you say that.
8 hours of sleep. 7:45 in the car up to 8:30, talking to people, switching off my WhatsApp in the office, evening time spent with family. These days, driving around with my daughter to spend some quality time, because that's the only time then both of us leave our phones and we chat with each other. And if there's a large traffic jam, even better, we spend more time together in the car.
You're probably the only one who is happy about Bangalore's traffic jams.
Yeah. And weekends are again running in the morning, sleeping, spending time talking to people like yourself, having badminton in the evening, and trying to catch a movie before I sleep.
Wow, that's a lot of routines that you follow. But I must tell you guys this. I think you don't miss these weekend running sessions at all. Absolutely, right?
Because they are learning sessions, they are conversations where I'm talking to people and learning from them.
Right. No, yeah, totally. Kudos to that. I see your pictures doing these weekend runs. Absolutely admiring. Okay. What new app do you think we would find on the front screen of your phone? Is there like
something new whenever you see the phone? So the last app I downloaded was something called Sticker Maker. I'm very fond of all these emojis and trying to have fun and humor. And then someone once told me that what, you can download this app, you can put your own picture or any other picture and make your own sticker.
Yeah,
so,
I've seen your emoji.
That's cool. Yeah, so that's the one. Tomorrow, I don't know if someone tells me about something else, I'll try it out. But like I said, all of these are fun things. If some of them were taken away, it won't impact my life in a big way.
Right, but I think you're so adaptive to changes, right? Which is so much fun, actually. Okay, this is an interesting one. So if you were shipwrecked on a deserted island and you had all the food and water you wanted, but what are the couple of things that you would take along with you, which is not essentials, of course?
I would like to have a live human with me who I can talk to.
Okay.
Because like I said, after my sleeping, which is my number one priority, the next priority is talking. And through that I learn. But if that is not available, then I'll probably have to rely on audiobooks and physical books and all of that, which I am unable to do because I always get a live person to read.
Yeah, and that's also good learnings, right? You don't just learn from the covers of a book, you also learn from
I do think that books provide a different set of learning. It's just that I haven't been able to do that, but I follow your blog and learn about books vicariously.
Thank you, Pankaj. No, that's really nice. What's the last gift you gave someone?
It's usually, I would say, some cognitive gift in terms of some advice or some idea. So I remember someone asked me what was the gift, and I said that. I said, my time is the best gift that you can
right?
have,
No,
and therefore the conversation and the interaction. I don't know whether these days anyone really needs physical material gifts. I think people have all that they have, and sometimes you don't know what they will really need. And now, not that I would never give a gift to anyone, but I just think that the cognitive need these days is far higher than the material need. So I'm happier to sort of share my time and my ideas rather than other things which I find it hard to do.
Yeah, no, what is lacking in today's time and age is time actually. So that's interesting one. So I'm going to end with this question. So if you have to summarize in maybe a couple of words, what are you known for?
I would just say authentic and being in the moment. Those are the two words come to my mind, and most of the time these are words that other people have, associated with me. Like I said, it's very hard to summarize your own self. I think we all spend the lifetime trying to know ourselves, and sometimes words don't do justice to our own summary. So I think words are limiting.
Yeah. Out of syllabus question, it just struck me. Is there a song you're associated with? Like a song that would play when you walk into a room, for example?
Good question. I never frankly thought about that. But maybe you can associate a song. Like I said, sometimes other people are able to tell you about yourself than you yourself. Our self-awareness is pretty low, I would say, despite all the introspection. I think other people are able to judge us much better.
Right, yeah.
I would probably, I like this song, this Amjad Khan song about Yari hai iman mera yaar meri zindagi. So I like engaging with people. I like friends. If I were to associate with that song, that one comes to mind. It's a very nice song.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. It has very light music. So maybe for lack of anything else, this one I'm able to come up with at least one.
I should find that song and add it to this. So I'll probably end with that. That was Pankaj Rai. Thank you for your time, Pankaj. This was actually, I really enjoyed doing this.
Thank you, Ranjani, and hope you will find more people who have made less mistakes in the next forum. Thank you.
Thank you.